Could it be? But me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to Draft Prospects 101 live. 2021 NFL Draft. We're talking quarterbacks on the inaugural show tonight. A lot of work has been done on these QBs this year. I wanted to switch things up this year and kind of give you a different feel. A lot of things that I'm kind of moving around, different moving parts. I apologize for pushing it back a couple of times. I was really dead set on getting this thing started at 8:30. I always tell anybody that'll listen, the first episode, when you first start out, it's always the hardest because there's so many things, and I still didn't get everything done the way that I wanted to, but that's nor here nor there. We're here. We're going to talk about these quarterbacks tonight. I'm going to do the show a little bit differently tonight. I also want to get your participation. If you're out there and you want to have your voice heard, use the hashtag LouieTLive to have your comment read on the air if it is pertinent. If you want to jump straight to the front of the line, use the super chat down below in the comment section. If you're live, you will see the button that will allow you to use the super chat. Go ahead, super chat. And if I see the super chat, I'm going to stop what I'm doing and I'm going to get to that super chat and read it. And so if you want to jump to the front of the line, use the super chat function on your screen. That said, what I want to first do is push everyone to follow me on all my different social media platforms. If you're not already on Patreon, this is probably the best time to get there, as we'll be doing some film breakdowns on Patreon. I'll do the first one on YouTube for free, so you'll kind of get a sense of what you'll be getting. And that'll be Trevor Lawrence, and that should be up this weekend. And then from that point forward, all of my other film breakdowns will be on Patreon exclusively. Now, what I do urge you to do is follow me on Twitter, at LouieTeeNetwork. Also, follow me on IG, LouieTeeNetwork_. Make sure that you're following me on all these various platforms, because what I will do from time to time is I'll put out a random piece of film, a player or two that I like from this player or I don't like from this player, as to why I have this guy rated where I have him, or I like him because of plays like this one. And so you'll see bits and pieces of guys that I may not break down. I may not break it down, this guy down particularly on Patreon, or I may not do a big breakdown on him on the YouTube channel, but you may get a film breakdown, a piece of one or a play or two on my different social media platforms, whether it be YouTube, whether it be on IG, or whether it be on Twitter. So make sure you're following me on all those different platforms so you don't miss out on anything, because again, I don't know when I'm going to upload these. The spirit may hit me. I may find a clip, I may be watching some film. Man, I really like this play from this guy, and I may upload it. So make sure that you guys are tuned in and locked into all of my different social media platforms. Turn on those notifications, whether you're on Twitter, IG, YouTube, so you don't miss a thing. And if you're out there, make sure you like this video, turn on your notification bell, again, so you don't miss anything. Again, you don't know when the hell I'm going live. Half the time, I don't even know when I'm going to go live. So it'd be in your best interest to turn on that notification bell. So with that said, what I do want to do is start out with my quarterback rankings for the 2021 NFL Draft. I want to just kind of set the table before we jump in and tell you that this class is interesting from this standpoint. First and foremost, I do this every year. I feel like I have to do this every year because specifically with the quarterback position, you get people off the beaten path with 15, 20 different names. And have you heard of this guy? Have you watched this guy? Have you watched this guy? And I'm like, no, okay, he's not getting drafted. Now, I did that, I think it was 2 years ago I did that. And I said the North Dakota State quarterback wasn't getting drafted, Easton Stick. And I also said Gardner Minshew wasn't getting drafted, and both of those guys got drafted. So it's hit or miss with that, but let me just reassure you. I may not have the right 13, 11 to 13 guys, but that's generally the amount of players that get drafted at the quarterback position. In 2020, there were 13 quarterbacks selected. In 2019, there were 11 quarterbacks selected. In 2018, there were 13 quarterbacks selected. It's going to be somewhere in that general vicinity of 10 to 13 quarterbacks taken in the draft. So don't have, 15 to 17 guys. I like this guy. They're not getting drafted, okay? They'll be undrafted on someone's roster with an invite to camp. So I try to keep it nice and tight when we start talking quarterbacks, because most of these guys aren't getting drafted. Those guys on the cusp, on the outside. When I make lists, they are comprised of 7 items. And so we're going to talk about the quarterback position. I've got my 7 guys that to me are the best 7, and I'll give you my ranking for them. I also want to do something different tonight. We're going to talk about what I like to call sound the alarm, which is every week when we do this program, we're going to have a guy that we sound the alarm for. So it's us waking people up. Wake the hell up. You're sleeping on this guy. Wake up. And I'm going to give you that guy tonight at the quarterback position. We'll also take a look at risers, or I call them movers and shakers. These are the guys that I feel like are moving up. In my eyes, for my listing and my rankings, they moved up after watching the film. I had them set here after watching the film. They're now here. And then there are guys that have gone down. And so we'll talk about some of those guys as well on the list tonight. And we'll get to a number of different topics. But that said, let's get to the list of these quarterbacks. And I want to start with my number 7 quarterback in the 2021 NFL draft. And it's Sam Ehlinger. And what's crazy about Sam Ehlinger is I had this preconceived notion of what Sam Ehlinger was coming into this process. And I thought I had it all figured out. And I'd watched him a ton at Texas. But, he's grown so much as a quarterback since his freshman year back in 2017 to now in 2020. He's one of the few guys in this draft that has a ton of starts under his belt. And so that's going to help him when you go to the evaluation process. There's a ton of tape that you can comb through, a lot of things that you can take a look at and say, hey, he's grown here. There's growth here. There's still some areas where there's room for more growth, but I think the experience really has helped Sam Ehlinger, and he's one of the guys that's moved way up on my list as he comes in at number 7. I want to take a look at Sam Ehlinger's QB card as we flip this thing over. We take a look at his strengths quickly. He's got an adequate arm. It's not going to blow you away, but it's a good enough arm. It's above average. He can make all the throws on the football field. His athleticism is something that jumps out at you. Sam Ehlinger can run. He can move. He's not a slouch back there. When things break down, he is able to make things happen with his legs. His athleticism plays a major part in why he's going to be intriguing in the mid portion of this draft. He's got some physicality and toughness. And so it says physically, but it's physicality and toughness. This is a guy that to me was like a pseudo running back at times. And you see that with guys like Trey Lance that play in those kind of spread offenses where there's a lot of zone read and a lot of read options and things of that nature. With him, you even get a speed option every now and again, but he runs it a ton. And so there's physicality there. He's a physical guy. There's a level of toughness there that you love with Sam Ehlinger. And so that's something else that he brings to the table. He processes and then progresses. I call it P&P, process and progress. You've got to be able to see the football field and then digest what is happening and then be able to progress through your reads. A lot of these quarterbacks, they come in, they're either a single read, they predetermine where they're going with the football, or they're a half field read guy. And that's okay. If you dissect what the defense is in pre-snap and you're reading half of the field and you know what half of the field to work and you got the matchup you like, go after it. Go for it. But when things don't happen the way that you think they should, you practice against this defense in practice and it doesn't go that way, and that first read isn't there. You got to be able to process what the defense is in, what they're doing, and get through your reads quickly and find the open guy. He can do that, and you saw him be able to do that as time progressed in his career at Texas. Eye manipulation and anticipation, one of my favorite plays from Sam Ehlinger, and I'm going to put this clip up at some point, is a throw against TCU where he absolutely manipulates the safety with his eyes, takes the safety away, knows exactly where he wants to go. He's staring backside, then turns front side and throws a laser to his receiver for the touchdown. It's a gorgeous throw. He also does a really good job of anticipating. There's a throw against Texas Tech, back of the end zone. His guy's running a bang eight on the front side of that play, and he puts it right on the money before that receiver comes out of his break, before that defender even has a chance to turn around. Football's already on the receiver for a touchdown. So he does a really good job with eye manipulation and anticipation. Pocket poise. I was really impressed with his ability to just manipulate the pocket. You know, you got to be able to negotiate the pocket as a quarterback. You can't always be ready to run when things break down, or be ready to run if the pocket is crumbling around you. Can you work from a dirty pocket? He can. He doesn't panic. And so that's something else I love with Sam Ehlinger. He's a playmaker. He can make plays with his feet, as we saw many a times at Texas, but he also can do it with his arm. He looks to extend to throw the football. His first inclination isn't to just vacate the pocket and run. He's looking to make a play with his arm, and he can. He's not always the most accurate in doing so. We'll talk about that here in a second, but he can make plays with both his feet and his arm. He can extend plays and make things happen. And those are the guys that are the most successful in the NFL, the guys that can extend plays with their legs, but still look to throw the football when they do extend the play. And then he's got starting experience, something that a lot of these quarterbacks in this year's draft class really don't have. We don't have a bunch of guys with 30 or 40 starts. A lot of these guys have 20 or 16 starts or 11 starts, a really smart. You know, COVID-19 kind of threw a wrench in a lot of these guys' plans to have 24 starts or to have 27 or to have 30 starts. But he's got 43. So he's got plenty of starting experience under his belt as well. His weaknesses, his height. He's not a big guy. You look at him, they had him listed at Texas at 6'3". He's probably more like 6'1", 6'1 and a half. He's not, I don't even think he's 6'2". I don't kill him for it. I don't knock him for it because he makes up for the lack of height with some of his other intangibles. Inconsistent accuracy. Mainly, he's inconsistent when his feet aren't set. And I know you say to yourself, well, duh, when a quarterback's feet aren't set, it's much easier for them to be inaccurate. But that's what separates the elite guys from the guys that aren't elite, is that a guy like Zach Wilson can throw from any platform. His feet don't have to be set. Hell, his feet don't even have to be on the ground, and he can make an accurate throw. That's not the case with Sam Ehlinger. He has to have a firm base a lot of times, or if he's in the pocket and he's moving, that's when he's inaccurate. When he's outside the pocket, sometimes his feet aren't set, obviously, when you're moving outside the pocket, but he can still make an accurate throw. So I think that his inconsistency a lot of times comes from within the pocket when he's moving around and his feet don't get set. Will take unnecessary risks and sacks. You'll see sometimes where he tries to fit a ball in there, and there's some times where he gets away with it. He's got a little bit of a gunslinger mentality. There's some times where he gets away with a few throws. You say, you shouldn't have done that. And then there's some times where you go, man, you got away with one. And then there's sacks that you see him take, and you say, come on, Sam, you can't take that sack. This particular situation, you're in the red zone. I'm watching him against TCU. He's in the red zone, and he extends the play, and he's about to get hit, and he tries to force it on a second down throw. And I'm like, dude, that almost got picked off. You're in the red zone. You're guaranteed a field goal opportunity if nothing else happens. You can't do that. So some of those plays he's got to eliminate. And then this is one of the biggest knocks for Texas fans, he just didn't win a lot of big games. And there's something to be said about finding a way to elevate your team in some of the biggest games in his career. He was 1-4 against Oklahoma in that big game that they play every single year, the Red River Shootout. He lost to LSU in 2019 in a game that they definitely could have won, and was up early in that ball game in a shootout. Lost to Iowa State this year. Just anytime they've played teams that were ranked, big games, it seems like he always ends up on the short end of things. But at the end of the day, I'm very intrigued by Sam Ehlinger. I think he can play at the next level. I look at him as a late day 2, early day 3 pick. So for me, what I'm telling you is I'd spend a late 3rd on Sam Ehlinger. I'd spend an early 4th on Sam Ehlinger. I think the talent is there. I think his skill set translates to today's NFL very well. And my comp for him is Mitchell Trubisky. And I know some of you are saying, well, you guys have to get out of the habit of thinking about these quarterbacks in the vein of Mitchell Trubisky stinks, so Sam Ehlinger stinks. Well, Mitchell Trubisky was drafted 2nd overall because he had talent coming into the NFL. Mitchell could run. Mitchell could throw it. Mitchell could do a lot of things that intrigue the Chicago Bears. All right. And Mitchell Trubisky is a talented quarterback. I believe in Mitchell Trubisky. I told you that I think he can play in this league. I think that there were some disservices done to Mitchell in Chicago, but that's another discussion for another day. At the end of the day, Mitchell Trubisky was talented enough to be drafted 2nd overall. Sam Ehlinger has a similar skill set. He's not as big as Mitchell Trubisky. I think Mitchell's more along the 6'3", size in terms of his height. But in terms of weight and his physicality, I think he's got a lot of the similar skill sets of a Mitchell Trubisky, and I think he plays with a little bit more of a sense of urgency than that of Mitchell Trubisky. He's willing to put his body on the line. Mitchell Trubisky at times makes some business decisions. I really think Sam Ehlinger has what it takes to potentially be a middle-of-the-pack NFL starter. I think this is a guy you can draft, and in a year or two, he's in there taking meaningful snaps, and you may feel like you found a guy that can get you to the postseason, I think you can do that with a Sam Ehlinger. So I'm going to stop my rankings quickly. I did have a super chat. This one is from my man Aldine Adkins, AA. Greatly appreciate you. AA says, I draft Sam Slinger as my tight end 3. Skull, love you. It's funny, because there was a point in time where I thought he would be just like Tyrone Swoops, out of Texas. Another one of these guys. It's big. It's physical. He wasn't as big as Tyrone Swoops. I think he was more along the lines of like 6'4", 6'5", whatever the case may be. But, they ran it a ton with him, especially when they got in the red zone. And I said, okay, I see where this is going. He's going to be another one of these running quarterbacks. But he really developed over his, the life of his career at Texas. And, I really like Sam Ehlinger. I think he's going to be a lot better than a lot of you think. As we move on to our quarterback number 6 on my rankings for these quarterbacks in 2021. And the next guy is Kyle Trask, quarterback out of Florida. This is a guy that in 2 years at Florida as the starter the last 2 seasons really made a name for himself. Started off this past year as a Heisman Trophy candidate. I mean, this guy was playing at an extremely high level. Looked like he was going to really make a serious run. Kind of cooled off as the season progressed. Had some ugly games mixed in, especially that LSU game. Again, I think they kind of underestimated LSU in that game. Didn't think that the Tigers, who weren't very good in 2020, weren't going to be able to get them in that football game. Didn't play Kyle Pitts, even though he probably was healthy enough to play. It backfired. Kyle Trask struggled. They ended up losing that football game. Anyhow, let's take a look at his QB card and analyze him. So the strengths for Kyle Trask, his size. He's a big kid. He's 6'5", 239 pounds. So right there, you're getting a guy that is built to withstand the rigors of the NFL game. He can stand tall in the pocket, see over the offensive line, see the defense, see where his receivers are. You like your guys to be that kind of size if you can get it. But a lot of these quarterbacks aren't built 6'5", 240 essentially. Adequate arm. His arm isn't going to blow you away. But again, it's above average. It can get the football everywhere it needs to go. And I don't have a problem with his arm strength. It's really, really good. It's good enough to get the job done. Accuracy at all three levels. That's the thing that really excites you if you're a Kyle Trask fan, is that he can throw the football anywhere, short, intermediate, deep, and he can get it there accurately. You give him a pocket to work in, a clean pocket, and he'll do damage. And so his accuracy shows up time and time again. This was a guy that was in 2 years at Florida, in 22 starts, in 24 games, but 22 of them starts, was damn near 70% completion percentage. And we're not talking a whole bunch of slips and bubbles. You know, this is a guy that's pushing it down the field. This is a guy that is really pressing the button against defenses and really applying pressure, you know, pushing the football vertically up the field. So to be at around 68% is saying a lot. Touch and anticipation. He can drill it in there when he has to, but he throws the football with a lot of touch and anticipation. And when you're going to complete it at a 68% clip, you better be able to anticipate, especially if you cannot move. If you're not a guy that is very mobile and able to extend plays, you better be able to anticipate and get the football to guys before they come out of breaks. And Kyle Trask is able to do that. And he's able to do it at times with feathery, soft touch. I can't tell you how many times he put the ball up 50-50 style for Kyle Pitts with so much touch, and Pitts was able to go up and get it. Or there's a linebacker over the middle of the field, 17 yards up the seam, and he has to put a little bit of touch to get it over that linebacker before the safety can get over the top. But, that underneath defender, that linebacker trying to get depth to get it to his receiver or to his tight end, and he was able to do that. Pocket mobility, again, if you aren't going to be getting out of the pocket and extending plays, you better be able to manipulate the pocket. You better have pocket mobility, be able to slide left to create that extra half a second. You better be able to dip that shoulder and step up and be able to get the football on that corner route to your wide receiver or tight end. He's able to do that. Working within the confines of the pocket that has been constructed for him, he's able to do that. Pocket poise, not afraid to stare down the gun barrel. He's not unnerved by pressure. There are some of these guys that get really fidgety. Pressure starts to come, they sense it. It may not even hit. They may have it protected, but they feel that pressure. Even if it's not there, they get jittery, feet start to get happy, and you get inaccurate throws. That's not Kyle Trask. If he has to stand there and take a shot, he will deliver the football down the field. And so that's something that I really like about Kyle Trask. Also, he's got the ability to extend plays. Like I said, he's not a big-time runner, but what he will do is he will duck that shoulder. Pressure's coming off the edges. He'll dip that shoulder. All right, he'll step up. He'll get out of that B gap, and he'll look to extend to throw the football. And he will tuck it and run, which is the last strength. His willingness to run. He's not afraid to tuck it and run. They ran him at Florida at times. And so he's not afraid to tuck it and run. He's just not going to go very fast nor very far if defenders are close. But he's not afraid to tuck it and run. He will extend plays to try and throw it. But again, he's not the best athlete, so those opportunities are going to become very limited for him at the next level. Those windows are going to be reduced, and those opportunities that he had at Florida to extend plays maybe become even more minuscule at the next level. His weakness is obviously lack of mobility. He's not fleet of foot. Speaking of which, he's heavy-footed in and outside of the pocket. What do I mean by that? You can see when a guy has lead in his feet. He wants to move his feet. They're just heavy. He can't move them but so fast. And then add to the fact that he's wearing knee braces. I don't know how heavy the knee brace is, but it doesn't make him look any faster. That's for damn sure. You can tell that his feet are heavy. There are times where he wants to move, but he can't move fast enough because his feet are extremely heavy. And so you see it outside of the pocket when he's running. He's running as hard as he can, and he's just not going anywhere. And in the pocket, there are times where he wants to move, where he wants to vacate, where he wants to create, and he can't. His feet are just too heavy. Ball security. This is a guy that in 2 years fumbled 10 times. Okay, he lost 7 of those. So that's a big number for a quarterback. 5 fumbles in each of the last 2 seasons for Kyle Trask, losing 7 over the last 2 years. Got to protect the rock a little bit better. There were some games in there where Kyle Trask was excellent. 5, 6 touchdown passes. He's shredding the defense. And then there are games where he's got 3 or 4 interceptions. I mean, his last collegiate game, Oklahoma, he threw 3 interceptions in the first quarter of that game. Not the first half, the first quarter. Now, granted, in his defense, like his top 4 targets were not available. They had already opted out. We're getting ready for the NFL draft. But doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you're throwing to the 10th guy on the roster or the first. You can't throw 3 interceptions in the first quarter. Sorry, you can't do it. And so that LSU game, struggled in that game, turned it over about 3 or 4 times. He's got to protect the football better. And he's not a playmaker. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. He's a guy that wants to do his damage in the pocket. He's not a guy that's going to extend a bunch of plays. He's not a guy that's going to make a bunch of things happen he's a guy that needs to be on schedule. He's not going to be able to extend a play and make things happen when things break down very often. He needs to have playmakers around him. He needs to have a Kadarius Toney on his football team. And he had playmakers, which is why he threw 43 touchdown passes this year. You know, he had the kid Grimes. He had Kadarius Toney. He had two of his players, his skill guys, are going to get drafted in the first round of Kadarius Toney and Kyle Pitts. He had talent around him, but he's going to have that at the next level. He's not a guy that's going to elevate the play of those around him. So for me, he's my 6th rated quarterback in this draft. As we go to my number 5 quarterback in this draft, it's Alabama quarterback Mac Jones. And this is a guy that I look at, and there are a lot of questions that we will have to answer with Mac Jones, and I'm going to present those questions to you a little bit here in a bit. But I will tell you this. The guy played at a ridiculously high level. We could sit here and we could talk about the offensive line, which he had a massive offensive line and damn near a brick wall in front of him. You watch him stand in the pocket and there is nobody around him most times. And then he had a ridiculous set of weapons around him, whether you're talking at the receiver position or in the backfield. He was loaded with weaponry at his disposal. Guys would get hurt and the next guy would come in and he'd just be as deadly as the guy that just left the field. So it's still, look, 41 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. That's still hard to do. So you say what you want about Mac Jones, but the guy, when he gets a clean pocket, he's cerebral. And we're going to flip this thing over and look at his card and talk about Mac Jones. Look, arm strength. I think Mac Jones has the ability to put the football wherever he wants on the football field. Again, it's not an elite arm. You don't have, Joe Burrow didn't have an elite arm coming out, and he does not have an elite arm. Joe Burrow can get the football everywhere it needs to go, and it's the same thing for a guy like Mac Jones. Accuracy at all 3 levels. You're not going to find a situation in which Mac Jones doesn't give his guy a chance. When his feet are set, pocket is clean, and he's able to see everything with clear eyes and an ability to have his feet set. This guy's going to deliver it short, intermediate, deep, accurately, so that this guy can catch it and run after the catch. And I think that's been shown time and time again. And when you complete passes at a 77.4% clip, like he did in 2020, which is unheard of, you're doing something. And again, much like I talked about with Kyle Trask, these aren't bubbles and hitches. Trust me, there are a bunch of those built in the Florida offense and the Alabama offense, but you're also pushing the football vertically. You're also pushing it down the field, and he did it among the best in college football and the most consistently in college football. 4,500 yards, 77.4% completion percentage, 41 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Again, you're going to find it very hard to find a guy putting up those kinds of stats in college football. It just doesn't happen very often. Process and progress. Again, a guy that can see the field, understand what's happening, and get through his reads and progressions quickly, get the football where it needs to go. Pro-style offense. This doesn't matter as much as it used to. I can tell you that, 5 years ago, it was a big deal if a guy played in a pro-style offense. If he was under center, you could see him taking drops, turning his back to the defense, being able to get to his track as he's handing the football off. These are all little subtleties that, used to matter. They don't matter anymore. So many of these offenses are now evolving to where they're adapting to guys that didn't play in a pro-style offense. It's not that big of a deal, but it's an added plus if you did play in a pro-style offense, which he did. And so it makes you feel more comfortable. It's easier to watch the film and be able to say how this guy translates to the next level, but it's also easier to put him into an offense and say, hey, this guy can do this because we watched him do it at Alabama. Caretaker of the football. He doesn't turn it over, okay? Like I said, 4 interceptions. This year, 7 interceptions for his career. When you go back to 2019 and his 12 games that he appeared in, 4 of them being starts. Only 7 interceptions total in his career at Alabama. Only 1 lost fumble in 2 seasons and 25 games. So he takes care of the football. He doesn't make many mistakes. Throws with touch. That's something that we take for granted as fans. When you evaluate quarterbacks, that's something that I don't think enough people talk about. Does this guy... I watched Dwayne Haskins coming out of college. One of the things I noted is he doesn't have a lot of touch. Everything comes out with a ton of velocity. And I just assumed, you hope that it gets better. But a lot of times if you don't see it, it's because it's not there. There's another guy in this draft that I feel like a lot of his passes don't have a lot of touch. It's 99 mile an hour fastball and the changeup is 93 miles an hour. Not that big of a difference, honestly. And that's Kellen Mond, another guy that I feel like there's not a lot of touch. There are a couple of times where you see it, like, hey, he can do it, but you don't see a lot of touch on throws by Kellen Mond. You see touch on the throws by Mac Jones. He can loft it over a defender, over the middle of the football field, linebacker getting depth. He can put it over him with feathery, soft, drugstore cotton touch. Again, when you complete damn near 78% of your passes in a season, you got to be able to do it in a multitude of ways, and he's able to do that with touch as well. He controls the game at the line of scrimmage. That's something you don't see a lot of quarterbacks do. You don't see a lot of guys setting the protection at the line. A lot of times in college specifically, the offensive line is responsible for setting the protections. The center is calling out who's blocking what and making sure everything's sound up front. You can actually see Mac Jones setting his protections, making sure that this running back stays in. He initially was going out on the route. Now I need you to stay in here and pick up this A-gap blitz. We're going to slide the line to the left. Lucy. So they're sliding the line to the left, and everything gets picked up, and now he's able to dissect you with a pass to Devontae Smith on a catch and run for a touchdown. You can see him orchestrating things at the line of scrimmage. Rapid release, and he's a rhythmic passer. So again, he gets it out of his hands quickly. All right, that's one of the things that saves a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo, for instance. Gets it out of his hands very quickly. That's the same thing you get here with Mac Jones. He's a rhythmic passer. So he does everything in timing and rhythm of the play. Again, a very rhythmic passer. If a guy's supposed to come out of his break 12 back to 10, by the time that foot hits the ground to come back, that ball's out, and when he turns around, it's going to be on him. He does a really good job of playing within the timing and rhythm of the play. And then he's a winner. Again, not a ton of starts under his belt. Only 17 starts, played in 25 games, but He's 16-1, including a perfect season, 13-0, and a national championship in 2020. So say what you want. Ton of talent around him, all of that good jazz. He won games. And that's what it's about at any level. Doesn't matter. Weaknesses. Look, lack of starting experience. Only 17 games. It's not a ton, but you can get past that. We've seen guys drafted with less. Played at Bama. So what does that mean? He had a dominant offensive line in front of him. As I talked about, you're watching him in the pocket, and you could go quarters without seeing anybody even near him. It's amazing how he was protected at times. And then the skill guys around him. It's fascinating to watch the haves and the have-nots in college football. When you're watching the Ohio States and the Clemsons and the Alabamas, and they're running circles around their opponents. And mind you, it's not always UTEP that they're running circles around. They're running circles around South Carolina, and they're running circles around Mississippi State and LSU. They're running circles around teams that also are recruiting elite athletes, and it's just ridiculous. It makes his job a hell of a lot easier when you can throw it 2 yards to your running back and have him break 5 tackles, jump over a guy, and score a touchdown. It makes a hell of a difference when you can throw a simple, shallow cross and your guy gets 1 block, takes it up the sideline, outruns the angle of the safety, and scores a touchdown. That's what he had at Alabama. So, can you put him on the field with guys with lesser talent and still get similar results? That's a question you have to ask yourself. Was his success a byproduct of Alabama? Or can he function with less talent but still get the football out to his receivers and running backs and still distribute the football in a way that's going to allow his team to maximize their potential? Limited mobility and not a playmaker. Look, his work is going to be done from the pocket. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. He's not a scrambler. He's even less mobile than Kyle Trask, believe it or not, which is really hard to do. But he's just not looking to run. There are times where you're watching him on tape and you say, wow, dude, just run. You need 5 yards, and he won't. He won't run. He can't even slide. It's hard to watch. He's not a playmaker, so that means he's not extending plays. He's not comfortable when he has to leave the pocket. You can see a guy very uncomfortable when there's pressure and when he's got to leave the pocket. And so that leads me to my last weakness, adversity. This is a guy that we heard Nick Saban talk about him having to grow up. And one of the reasons he had to grow up is he didn't deal with adversity very well. Speaking of which, when he makes a mistake, I watched this guy visibly tear himself to shreds. And look, that's not uncommon. Tom Brady throws a stupid boneheaded pick. He's going to really let himself have it. But there's a difference between knowing the mistake you made, saying, okay, I effed up, and then moving on and then sulking on the sidelines. He's a guy that in the past has sulked. I've watched him sulk over a mistake. You watch him in the national championship game early when Ohio State forces him to fumble. Watch him go on the sidelines. It took him a while to compose himself. I don't know if he has a 3 interception game because he didn't have any of those in college. He has a 3 Can he overcome that? Team's still in the game, but he's thrown 3 picks. Can he overcome that? Or will he succumb to the mistakes? He's won 16 out of 17 starts. If his team goes on a 2-game skid and he's not playing well, can he overcome that mentally? Or will that gobble him up? And then, can he operate in a dirty pocket? You didn't see it a lot. You didn't see him operating in a dirty pocket. In the times that I did see him in a dirty pocket, he wasn't very comfortable. There are a couple of times where he's staring down the gun barrel and Najee Harris is running an arrow route over the middle of the football field, or a Texas route as some may call it. And he's got to wait for him to win, but he knows his guy is going to win. And so he's willing to stand in there just an extra tick. But if the pocket's dirty and he doesn't know where to go, his first read isn't there and the pocket gets a little dirty and murky, he gets really, really flustered. He starts to panic. That's something that you definitely see with Mac Jones. But he's my 5th rated quarterback in this draft. As we move to my 4th rated quarterback in this draft, Ohio State quarterback Justin Fields. Look, we've been long told this, and guys in the scouting community preach this all the time, okay? Don't scout the helmet, scout the player, okay? It's very hard to do that sometimes when a university, a school continues to produce duds at the position, which Ohio State has done, particularly at the quarterback position. They just can't seem to produce a quarterback that goes to the NFL and has any type of success. That said, I'm going to bypass all of that with Justin Fields, and I'm just going to focus on Justin Fields and what he brings to the table. And I can tell you this, the guy completed at a 69% clip at Ohio State in his 2 years as a starter. The guy threw 63 touchdowns, only 9 interceptions. The guy was a machine. He won ball games. He was 20-2 in his career. There's a lot to like here. There's a lot not to like. I think that there's a lot of upside, though, here with Justin Fields. I can tell you this. When I wrote this in my analysis in my report for him, I don't know of many quarterbacks that needed the 2020 season more than Justin Fields, which is part of the reason he was so adamant. He was the guy that started this petition that got a bunch of signatures to have college football be reinstated so that they could play. He knew that his draft stock kind of depended on it. He was still going to be highly rated, and he was going to be drafted relatively early, but there were a lot more questions. I think he answered some of those questions in 2021 with his play. Let's take a look at his card and flip this thing over. So, his strengths, he's got an adequate arm. All right. Again, not an arm that's going to wow you. This isn't a Justin Herbert type of arm. You know, this isn't a Josh Allen type of arm. This isn't a Zach Wilson type arm. Okay. It's not elite, but he can make every throw on the field, and that's all that matters. Athleticism and mobility. Again, we know that this guy can move. We know he can run. We know he can extend plays. His mobility is a huge part of his game. It's what makes him so dangerous. So that's something that is definitely high on the list of his strengths. Toughness. We saw his toughness, multiple times over while at Ohio State. We saw this guy take shots. We saw him get up. We saw him play with injuries. Going back to his first year as a starter at Ohio State in 2019, he wasn't right in that Orange Bowl game against Clemson. He wasn't 100% in that game. He had an injury late in that season, and he played through it. He's a tough guy. We saw the shot he took in the Clemson game, right to the ribs. All right, he left for like one play and came right back, and he was wincing the entire game. We knew he was banged up, and don't think for 1 second that he was 100% healthy. A week or two later when they played against Alabama, but he gutted it out. He's a tough guy. Sturdiness and physicality. So sturdiness and physicality are two things that you don't get with every quarterback. Sturdiness for me is when a guy is in the pocket and he can shrug off a defender. You get an edge rusher that beats the tackle around the edge and you step up, but he grabs your shoulder. And if you're not a sturdy quarterback and he yanks your shoulder pad, you're going down. But if you're a sturdy quarterback, if you're a Big Ben type of guy, if you're a Drew Bledsoe type of guy where you're just big, you're physical, you're sturdy, hard to bring down, you're going to shrug that guy off, you're going to keep your feet, and you're going to continue on trying to make a play. He has that innate ability. He's got that sturdiness where we call it contact balance everywhere else on the field. If a running back has the ball and you try to take out his knee, it's what makes Alvin Kamara an elite back. He's got the best contact balance of any player I've ever scouted. You see that with quarterbacks. I call it sturdiness in the pocket. And then he's got physicality. He finishes runs. Again, a lot of these quarterbacks, they finish runs physically. They're going to find out very quickly at the NFL level, that's not what you want to do. This ain't what you want. You don't want to finish runs physically. Joe Burrow, it took him all of 8 games in his rookie season, I believe it was, maybe 8 or 6. I remember a soundbite where he said, hey, look, I ain't taking any more of those shots. I'm done. And he started sliding and he started running out of bounds. It doesn't take long for these guys like Sam Ehlinger and Justin Fields to realize, man, I better get my ass down, okay? So he's a physical guy. That's going to stop at the next level. He's going to learn how to slide sooner if he wants to preserve. It's called self-preservation. If you want to do it, you'll learn how to slide a lot sooner. That extra yard or two that you can get isn't worth you taking the shot that is associated and attached to that extra yard or two. Playmaker, extendability. Again, just because you have wheels doesn't mean that you extend the play looking to throw. He's got the ability to extend plays and then chuck it down the field. There are a couple of guys in this draft that, to me, they can run. They're athletes. They're athletically gifted, but they're not looking to extend the throw. All right. When I watch Kellen Mond, he's not looking to extend the throw. He's looking to run. Okay. Once he vacates the pocket, if a guy's not right in front of his face, he's tucking and he's running. All right. Same can be said for the transfer out of Wake Forest, Jamie Newman. Another guy that'll tuck it and he's not looking to extend. He's tucking it and he's looking to run. Justin Fields is tucking, but if he gets to a point where he's safe, his eyes remain up and he's looking to throw it down the field. He's looking to make a big play. Accuracy, short and intermediate. So short to intermediate, he's money a lot of times. Even though I do feel like when I watch him, and I don't know if you guys can attest to this or not, when I watch him, I see a guy that throws the football with not a lot of zip. A lot of his balls, especially when they go out to the boundary, if he's throwing to the opposite hash or he's throwing a speed out, those balls tend to sail on him. There's a little bit more air under it than you would like. You want those things to be on a rope to a guy, catch it so he can turn up the field. A lot of his balls, guys are having to leave their feet, jump to catch them. I don't necessarily love it, but it gets there. But there's not a lot of yards after catch when you do that a lot of times. He can throw from multiple arm slots, and not everybody is equipped with that ability. You know, one of the best guys I've ever seen do it in the NFL is Matthew Stafford. Stafford will hit you from 6 different arm angles. Patrick Mahomes has picked up where Stafford left off. He can hit you from multiple angles. Hell, he doesn't even have to look, does Mahomes, when he's throwing it. So when the guy comes in and he can drop down 3/4 or he can drop down even lower to get it to a guy, that's big, because when you're 6'3" like Justin Fields, you're going to have some trees with their hands up. Sometimes you got to be able to just throw it right on the side of them, right under their armpits. He can do that. And then he's a winner. Again, say what you want about Justin Fields, and we could probably say that about most Ohio State quarterbacks. They won a bunch of games. I get it. But it's still 20 wins, 2 losses. And his last season, he took his team all the way to the national championship game. So, again, got to be able to give guys credit where it's due. Weaknesses, okay? He will stare it down. This is not a guy that's looking off the safety a ton of times, or even looking off underneath coverage. You know, when you got linebackers reading your eyes, you can't just take them straight to the football. And a lot of times, he will stare it down and take guys right to the football, but, you know, he still is able to get it there because his guy wins in a major way, or that linebacker maybe didn't trust his eyes fast enough. Whatever the case may be, he will stare it down. I've got some instances where he's taking defenders straight to the football. You will see that in the film breakdown when we get to Justin Fields. He'll stare it down, take the safety right to where the ball's going. Doesn't process and progress rapidly. I think he's a guy that gets stuck on his first read a lot of times. You know, that first read, he's banking on that guy getting open. And 90% of the time in Ohio State's offense, that guy does get open. But when that guy doesn't get open, he sticks there a little bit too long. And there are times where he'll still force it anyway. But he didn't go through his progressions fast enough for me. Look, number 1's not there. 2's not there. Get it to the check down, okay? 2's not there. Maybe 3 on the backside is open. Get it to him. He didn't go through his progressions fast enough for me. He massages the ball a ton, and that kind of speaks to doesn't process and progress rapidly enough for me. He'll massage it, man. He'll hold on to it, and you're like, dude, get rid of it. Dude, get rid of it. And he'll take an unnecessary sack. Speaking of which, takes too many sacks and vicious hits. Have you ever seen a quarterback take more vicious hits than Justin Fields? I can't remember a guy taking the amount of vicious shots in a 2-year span than Justin Fields. He took some hellacious shots in college where you just go, and then there's some sacks in there. You're like, come on, bro. You can't. You're too athletic. You're too athletically gifted. You got too many talented guys around you, and you're too smart for that. Get rid of the damn ball. He fumbles too much for my liking, and there are too many batted balls. Okay, and again, this is a byproduct of you staring it down and you telling a guy and telegraphing when you're going to throw it. And so guys know they're not getting there. They see you about to throw it. They get their hands up, and he gets a lot of balls batted. Too many for my liking. This is a guy that fumbled 11 times in 2 years. 9 of those fumbles came in 2019. Now, he was a lot better in 2020. But 9 fumbles in one season, far too many. Lost 5 of those. So he's going to have to clean that up in terms of when he gets hit. He's got to hold on to the ball. And then finally, his deep ball accuracy is way too inconsistent for me. That's something he needs to shore up. I talk about the difference between elites and the above average quarterbacks. And there's a fine line between an elite quarterback and an above average quarterback. Or a really good quarterback and a guy that's right on the cusp of being elite, but right on that tier below. And a lot of times it's your ability to hit the deep ball. It comes open. Can you hit the deep ball? You don't get these opportunities in the NFL very often. And wide open in the NFL is a lot different than wide open at Ohio State. Okay? Wide open at Ohio State, a guy's open by 5 yards. In the NFL, a guy's got a step and a half. That's wide open in the NFL. I need you to make that throw. He misses the deep ball for me too often, and too many times it's underthrown. I know he has the arm strength to get it there. Too many times, even in the game, he threw 6 touchdown passes. I'm nitpicking against Clemson. How many of those throws did his receiver have to catch it on his back hip and snatch it forward? At least 2 touchdowns that were deep balls that you say, come on, guy. That easily, if that guy wasn't beaten by 7 yards, that could be a breakup. But because they were beaten so badly, he was able to snatch it off his back hip and make the catch. So deep ball accuracy is something that I think he has to get better at. I look at him as a top 20 guy. He's going to go in the top 10 picks. I'm aware of this. I see him as a top 20 guy. I wouldn't spend a top 10 pick on him, but I would spend 17 on him. I would spend 15 on him. My comp for him is Marcus Mariota. I see a lot of the same characteristics. A lot of the things I just expressed are things that I expressed with Mariota coming out of Oregon. A lot of wide open receivers. A guy that wasn't always the most accurate when he would throw it deep. A guy that was an extremely gifted athlete, won a ton of games in college, could run to extend. A lot of these things, I see a lot of those same traits here. And I like Marcus Mariota, and I think he's going to get another chance in this league, and I think he may be successful, similar to Ryan Tannehill. And just to go backwards a step, I just broke down Mac Jones. His comp is Eli Manning, and I do want to make sure you understand that I feel like Mac Jones is a late 1, early 2nd. I wouldn't spend the 19th overall pick if you're Washington. I wouldn't do that. Again, get your guy when you feel the need to get your guy. I've always said that. But for me, Mac Jones is the 28th pick in the draft. He's the 32nd pick in the draft. He's the 37th pick. He's the 34th pick in the draft. That's where Mac Jones should go. He'll probably go a lot sooner than that. So we're going to move on to the next guy in my ranking, and it's my number 3 quarterback. And of course, you knew who it was already. It's Trey Lance, and this is a guy that I think there are a lot more questions than answers, but there are a lot of things that you see with him that tell you that this guy can get it done, man. I mean, there are a lot of things that really get you excited. And I think there are some perfect fits in this draft for specific schemes. And this is a guy that, to me, fits like hand in glove in a particular scheme. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. But let's get to his card and flip this thing over and talk about Trey Lance and what he brings to the table. 6'3", 224-pound quarterback. So, the first thing we're talking about is size and physicality. He's a big kid. He runs. I mean, there are games like the national championship game. His final meaningful game in college was the national championship game versus JMU. And I lie to you not, the guy had 30 carries in the game. 30 freaking carries by the quarterback. I mean, at times he was a running back. And that's okay when you're at, North Dakota State. But at the next level, you're not looking for your quarterback to run it, 25 times in a game. That's just not what we're doing up here at this level. So he's got physicality, though. He's got the size. He's a thickly built guy that can withstand the rigors of the NFL game. That is for sure. Arm talent. He could get the football wherever you need it to go. Really like his arm strength. I think he can throw the football a ton. I think he's got one of the better arms in this draft, if you ask me. Athleticism and mobility. He's a runner. He can run. He's not. And so you see my comp down at the bottom. We'll talk about that. The one thing I would say that is a little bit different is when Donovan first came in the league, he was making dudes miss. We all remember the Mark Carrier shakedown. I mean, we all remember that like it was yesterday, especially if you're a Washington fan. That was the first year we got Mark Carrier and Bruce Smith and all those guys. And he sung that Gregory Abbott song, Girl, I want to shake you down. Shook his ass down. I mean, broke him down to his damn socks and drawers. It was bad. He's not doing it. Trey Lance isn't doing it. But he will run your ass over. He will run your ass over. Pro-style offense and fakes, my God, are his fakes. And, this is something that people don't really talk about with quarterbacks. How well you carry out fakes. The difference between a guy running a deep cross and a guy and getting open against a linebacker that's supposed to be getting depth and that linebacker sagging right underneath that deep cross and him not being open. The difference between that is how well you show that football and show fake and show run. His run action fakes are exquisite. He shows the football. He makes you believe that this is a run. You can't help but take a couple of steps up as a linebacker. And now he's got that deep cross behind you. Boop! Drops it over your head where you're supposed to be. And he's under center. This is one of the things we all love about these North Dakota State quarterbacks. Whether it's Carson Wentz or it's Easton Stick or now it's Trey Lance, we know they're coming from a pro-style offense. They're under center. They're handing off the ball. They're going run action fake. They're doing all of the little things that you don't see most of these college quarterbacks doing from under center. Accuracy, all three levels. Another one of these guys that just doesn't miss a ton of opportunities. He was a 67%, completion guy in his lone year as a starter at North Dakota State. And again, they're built-in bubbles and quick passes at or around the line of scrimmage, but there was a fair share of passes down the field. And again, he just doesn't miss a lot of these throws. So he can throw it with accuracy at all three levels. Throws with touch. There are several throws where you watch him and you go, man, that's nice. That's really, really nice. Where he just puts it on the money with soft touch, where only his guy can get it over a defender. You go, man, that's nice. Avoids mistakes. It's a gift and a curse. Look, I don't want my guy turning it over. So if I can at all avoid mistakes, that's what I want my guy to do, not turn it over. But with that said, It also could be a curse. Look, he didn't turn it over but one time. I didn't count that 2020 exhibition. Let's call it what it was. It was an exhibition. It was the stupidest thing I've ever seen nor heard of. Like, that's so disrespectful to all of the players involved in that. You got one of his offensive linemen that could potentially be drafted, risking his future just because you won a showcase game for Trey Lance. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. It was stupid. It was reckless by North Dakota State for even allowing that. It was selfish, and I'm glad nobody really got hurt. I don't even count that game. I didn't even watch the film for that game because it wasn't a real football game. So, to me, he threw an interception in that game. I don't care. That doesn't count. There's no carryover. It didn't matter. He knew it didn't matter. It didn't matter. It was a stupid game. He didn't throw an interception all of 2019. Not a single one. Now, I watched his games, and there were several throws he could have had picked off, but they weren't. And so he didn't have an interception. He had one fumble. And the one fumble, he had one fumble that he lost. He fumbled 3 times. But he only lost one fumble, okay? Or excuse me, he fumbled 4 times. But he only lost one fumble, all right? And that was an exchange between he and a running back on a read option. And he couldn't decide if he wanted to pull it or give it. The running back didn't know, and it was all funky. The ball gets fumbled, it gets scooped up. That's his one fumble. He didn't turn it over very often. He takes care of the football. He's a playmaker. He can create off schedule. And in this league, there is a premium that's put on being able to create off schedule. The best in the league are able to create off schedule. Whether you're talking Mahomes, Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson. I could go on and on. When we're talking about the creme de la creme in the NFL, Deshaun Watson, these are guys that can extend plays and create off schedule. Trey Lance can do that, and you watched him do it time and time again at North Dakota State. And finally, he's a winner, man. 16-0 in his collegiate career. Doesn't get any better than that. He was perfect. Now, again, not a ton of starts. We'll get to that in a second. But every game he played, he won. What more can I say? And then you get to his weaknesses. Lack of starting experience. Only 16 starts, okay? We're all aware of this. It doesn't change the way you feel about him. It's just something that you note. Lack of adversity. This is something that's really big for me, okay? He didn't lose any games in college. So I don't know how he's going to respond to a 2-game losing streak. I don't know how he's going to respond when he throws an interception late in a ball game and they lose. And is that going to carry over the next week into a poor start or a poor performance and they lose again? Is one loss going to turn into 2? How about when he throws an interception? Hasn't done that yet. Hasn't thrown an interception since high school. So what's going to happen when he throws an interception? He throws a pick 6 early in a ball game. Is he going to drop his head? Is that pick going to then change how aggressive he is the remainder of that game? Or is he going to bounce back, selective memory, wipe it from the memory bank, and go out and kick ass? I don't know because I haven't seen it before. That's a big one for me. Now, again, if I love this guy, that's not going to dissuade me. It's just something that you have to consider because it matters. It matters. Will pull the string from time to time. You'll see him and you're like, I know you can make that throw. You're trying to be too fine. Just let it rip. I'd much rather have my quarterback in certain instances. I'd much rather have you overthrow it than underthrow it, because if the defender's looking, it's a pick when you underthrow it. Now, a lot of times, even at the NFL level, these corners are clueless. They have no idea where the football is. So they're going to end up getting PI. If you just jump back into them, you'll get a freebie. But I'd rather you throw it over the head of your guy than underthrow it. Yeah, your guy can adjust if it's underthrown and make a play. But again, if it's a savvy corner, it's a pick. And there are times where his guy he has one on the route. He's got 3 steps on the defender, and now he's got to wait on the ball. And you're like, you missed an opportunity there. Even if it ends up being a catch, instead of it being a 55-yard gain, it could have been a 71-yard touchdown. Needs more seasoning from the pocket. All right. He needs more seasoning as a pocket passer, and you can see it when it comes to him processing and progressing, or as I like to call it, P&P. You can see it when it comes to him being able to get through his progressions quickly. He gets stuck on his first or his second read, and he's in the pocket too long, and then things start to crumble around him, and he ends up taking a sack. Or, he gets stuck on that first read, and you're like, dude, let it go. Let it go. And he's holding it. He's hitching it. He's taking an extra hitch. And that's how you get and then he cuts it loose. And that's how you get yourself into trouble. That's how you throw a pick. So you can tell that with more experience, he'll get better. I got no doubts that as he plays more and he understands coverage and what defenses are trying to do, and he understands the offense that he's in, he'll be able to go 1 to 2 to 3 check down. And you see him do it from time to time, but you'd like to see him do it more consistently, and you'd like to see him do it a little quicker as well. All in all, I'd spend a top 15 pick on this kid. He's going to go top 10. Every one of the top 4 quarterbacks in this draft are going in the top 10. I would go out on a limb and say they're going top 8. I don't think any of the top 4 quarterbacks in this draft get past number 8. But I would be willing to spend a top 15 pick, meaning anywhere from 1 to 15, I would be satisfied with Trey Lance. I wouldn't spend 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, but 6, 7, 8, yeah, I'd spend that on him in a heartbeat. And my comp for him is Donovan McNabb. I see it. The first guy I thought of when I watched him play from the very first time I laid eyes on him last year when I was watching this kid, I said, he's Donovan McNabb. Same size, body build, the way he throws the football, how he kind of commands the field, how he goes about his business. He's Donovan McNabb. I just see it. So he's my number 3 quarterback in this draft. We go to number 2 in this draft, and it is Zachary Wilson, quarterback of BYU. This is a guy that I'm extremely excited about, man. A lot of people early in the season, when I had no clue who this kid was telling me about him, especially a lot of Washington fans. They were enamored with this kid. And I didn't know who he was, Adam from Eve. I watched the game earlier this season. He lit somebody up. It was Houston. Come from behind victory. They were down 28-16. He rallies them back. He was outstanding in the game. And I was like, pretty damn impressive. That's when Washington fans thought we were going to have a top 10 pick. I told them we weren't. And that's also when they were hoping that this kid would go under the radar and you'd be able to sneak him at 9 or 10 or 13. It's not happening. All right, this kid's coming off the board. He could easily go 1 to Jacksonville. It's not out of the realm of possibility. Let's talk about why he could potentially go number 1 overall in this draft. Elite arm talent is the first strength. And to me, he's got the strongest arm in this draft, and it's not even close. I don't think anybody really comes close to his ability to sling the football. I mean, it's literally a flick of the wrist, and the football is going 55 yards in the air with Zach Wilson. So I think that his talent in terms of his arm is off the charts. Athleticism and elusiveness. You know, it was funny because when people were describing him to me, the first name that would rattle off their tongue is Kyler Murray. And I said to myself, I never said this to anybody else, don't do that. Don't disrespect Kyler Murray like that. His quickness is ridiculous. It's off the charts. And I doubt this white boy is going to be able to match that. I was wrong. Okay. He's not as quick as Kyler Murray, but he's not that damn far off. And he's a lot more elusive than I thought he was going to be. So I was wrong in that department. He definitely can move, and he can make people miss. So that was a shock to the senses for me. Really impressed with his ability to run, but also make people miss in space. Athletic arrogance. I love it. Like the best of the best, they know they're better, and they're not afraid to let you know that they're better. Just by the way they carry themselves, with the swag that they play with. He's one of those guys that walks around and plays on the field like his shit don't stink. And that's the kind of guy you want. You want a guy that's athletically arrogant. All right. And he's got a lot of that, you know, where he's scoring a touchdown and he's jumping in the end zone and he's finger rolling it, or he's rolling out of the pocket. Guys trying to tackle him. He jumps in the air. He doesn't have to jump. He's showing off. He doesn't have to leave his feet to throw it 25 yards on a frozen rope, but he does. Because he's got that athletic arrogance. Multiple arm slots and quick release. Those are winners at the next level, man. You know, when you can throw it lightning quick. Again, Jimmy Garoppolo would be out of the league if he did not have a lightning quick release. It's what saves him a lot of times. He's slow to progress. He doesn't get the football where it needs to go in timing and rhythm of the play a lot of times. But what saves Jimmy Garoppolo's ass is that he's got one of the quickest releases in the NFL. Zach Wilson has that exact same thing, except he actually is within the timing and rhythm of the play. He knows where he's supposed to go. And he can also, much like a Patrick Mahomes or Matthew Stafford, he can, and Aaron Rodgers, he can get it to you, give it to you in a multitude of ways from different arm slots. So again, that makes him that much harder to defend. Eye manipulation and student of the game. So one of the things I was really impressed to learn is that this guy's a football junkie. You know, I know some of you are going to laugh when I say this, but a fellow BYU quarterback by the name of John Beck was one of his mentors. John Beck, if you're a Washington fan, it's laughable, I know, but John Beck still made it to the NFL. And we see this all the time with these quarterback gurus. Like, you know, Carson Palmer's brother, Jordan, is a quarterback guru. He made it to the NFL, but he wasn't any good at the NFL level. But yet everybody goes to him to help enhance their draft stock, to work on some of the mechanics and fundamentals of the game at the quarterback position. Same thing could be said for John Beck, you know. But not only John Beck, I'll take it a step further. He has made great friends with Drew Brees. Like, he is really dialed in with Drew Brees. They've watched film together. This guy is a football junkie, which is what you want at the quarterback position. So he's doing things from an eye manipulation standpoint that not many guys come into the league doing. That's some stuff that you usually don't get until you're 2-3 years into the league. You know, looking off that safety or looking off that underneath defender because you know you got a slant on the backside. You know that safety's watching your eyes. So you're going to look front side knowing you're throwing a slant backside. Just to open up that little bit of space. There's a robber. You've already identified that safety's coming down. He wants to rob. Okay? So instead of you staring it down and taking the robber to the football so he can pick it off, you stare front side and you come backside. And you see it with him time and time again. And you're just like, man, this kid gets it. He gets it because he's a student of the game. Progress, he processes and progresses really well. You see his head go from 1 to 2 to 3, and he gets it to his third option. You see his head go from 1 to 2 to 3. I'm going to get it to my check down. You see him analyzing the defense quickly. 1, 2, 3, ball out. And so you know that this guy knows what he's supposed to do, where he's supposed to go with the football. Pocket poise and accuracy at all levels. He's a guy that when things are crumbling around him, he doesn't have to work from a clean pocket. If the pocket's dirty, he can negotiate it. If he has to get outside the pocket, he can. If he's got to step up in the pocket, if he's got to slide left or if he's got to slide up or slide right, slightly just to create that extra fraction of a second, he can do it. So to me, his poise in the pocket is elite. His accuracy is off the charts. The guy completed it at a 73.5% clip. And again, if you watched him, you know a lot of these passes are down the field. These aren't nickel and dimers, folks, okay? He's pulling out the big bills, and he's chucking it deep, and he's completing it at over 73%. 33 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. The guy was ridiculous this season. So we know that this guy can get it at all levels, and he's got the poise that you're looking for. But to me, what separates him from just about everybody else in the draft at the quarterback position is him being a dynamic playmaker. The thing that gets you excited about Zach Wilson, which if Jacksonville were to draft him 1 overall, I wouldn't be mad about, is because he's a dynamic playmaker. He's Josh Allen. He's Patrick Mahomes. He's Kyler Murray. He's Aaron Rodgers in his prime. He's one of those players that can take a broken play that looks like it's going to be a bad play, and he turns bad plays into net gain plays, okay? He turns it into an even play. It was bad. Free hitter coming off the edge, makes him miss, and picks up 3 yards. That should have been a loss of 6. He takes good plays and he makes them great plays. He takes great plays and makes them legendary. That's the kind of playmaking ability he has, okay? And so when you watch him, whether it's with his legs or with his arms, you say, that's what today's NFL looks like. That's what Mahomes looks like. That's what Kyler Murray looks like. That's what Russell Wilson looks like. That's what Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson, that's what the best in the business look like. They look like Zach Wilson. Weaknesses. Injury history. You can't overlook these things. Why haven't I heard of Zach Wilson before this year? Not because he played at BYU. I knew of Trey Lance and he played at North Dakota State. Why didn't I know about Zach Wilson? Because he's been dealing with injuries. He missed 8 games over the last 2 seasons. His only full season playing all of his team's games was 2020, this past year. Before that, it was 9 games. The year before that, in 18, it was 9 games. This is a guy that has had shoulder surgery in 2018. That same shoulder bothered him in 2019. And he had a fractured thumb in 2019 to go along with shoulder issues in 19. So this is a guy with a history of injuries. You just need to keep that in mind. Again, I'm not telling you to take him off your board, or I'm not telling you to knock him. I'm just telling you, make a mental note of that. Make sure that your medical staff is able to evaluate him. Everything looks good. Everything checks out, because this is a guy with an injury history that you cannot ignore. Then you get to the next weakness. When to say when. All right. Friends know when to say when. Okay. This was one of my big issues with Joe Burrow last year. One of my biggest knocks on Joe Burrow is he didn't know when to say when. He didn't know when a play was over. When the defense won, he always wanted to still find a way. That's the Carson Wentz syndrome. When a play is over and the defense won, you just got to tip your cap and say, hey, you got me on this one. I'll get you next time. Carson Wentz got beat up last year because he didn't know when to say when. When Joe Burrow made mistakes at LSU, it was because he didn't know when to say when. When Josh Allen makes mistakes, takes a 21-yard sack. When Josh Allen gets hit and fumbles 15 yards behind the line of scrimmage like he did against the Indianapolis Colts in Wild Card Weekend, it's when he doesn't know when to say when. Sometimes you get that with Zach Wilson. And that's what happens a lot of times. Same thing with Russell Wilson. That's what happens when you have a dynamic playmaker. They don't know when to shut it off sometimes. And so you'll have an 11-yard sack. You'll have a 16-yard sack. It'll be 2nd and 4, and now it's 3rd and 20. He just took a 16-yard sack because he didn't want to give up on the play. And so every now and again, you're like, hey, Zach, just get rid of it, bruh. He'll get better at that. Will force balls into tight spaces, okay? Look, when you've got the kind of arm that he has, you're going to try to fit some balls where they don't belong. Pause. However, what I don't like about that, because a lot of times when you think about quarterbacks trying to fit the ball in tight spaces, you think about interceptions. Oh, man, safety's going to pick it off. Oh, man, it's cover 2. He's trying to fit it in the honey hole. You got a corner sagging underneath that route, pick it off. Nah, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about him getting his receivers' blocks knocked off. I mean, clean off. Heads knocked off of shoulders. There's only so many times you can put your receivers and teammates at risk before they start getting pissed off at you. He's got to understand, bruh, that 9-yard gain ain't worth your receiver taking that kind of hit that you're about to force him to take to try to catch this football. Don't do that. You're better than that. I'd rather you tuck and run it for 4 than you try to zing it in there and the linebacker's waiting on this guy and he gets crushed and it's incomplete. Don't do that. I watched at least 3 different instances where he got one of his guys crushed. I mean, decapitated. He's got to be better than that. And then finally, the reason he's not number 1 for me, this is the only reason he's not number 1. It's not the injuries. It's not knowing when to say when and him not knowing when to do that. It's not him forcing balls into tight spaces. It's the Utah game in 2019, and it's Coastal Carolina in 2020. That's why he's not my number 1 quarterback. Because my number 1 quarterback in those types of games rose to the occasion. We've seen him do it. I know he can do it. He didn't do it against LSU. I think that was his worst game. Was Trevor Lawrence's worst game. Was against LSU in 2019 in a national championship game. And he wasn't great against Ohio State in a playoff game. He wasn't terrible. But I know what he can do. I watched him bring his team back from the dead against Ohio State in a game they were getting drubbed in and should have been getting blown out in a playoff game in the Orange Bowl in 2019. I watched him as a freshman systematically take apart Alabama's defense. I know what he's capable of. I cannot say the same for Zach Wilson. When he saw NFL caliber defenses, he struggled. And when teams were physical with him, Coastal Carolina bullied him. They were physical with him. They hit him during the play. They hit him after the play. They were in his face. He wasn't comfortable. It got to him. You could tell. But the 2019 game against Utah is the one that stuck out for me. Because even against Coastal Carolina, he still had him in the game late with a chance to win it. The Utah game in 2019 was awful. And the reason I bring that up is because 2 of his worst games of his collegiate career came against Utah, once in 2018 and once in 2019. But the one in 2019 in particular was the one that jumped off the screen at me, because you got to understand, Utah essentially had an NFL defense in 2019. Leki Fotu, their defensive tackle, draft pick last year. Their safety was drafted, Julian Blackmon, one of the better young safeties in the league already after 1 season. He was tremendous for the Colts. The corner that Chicago took, I forgot his name, but the corner was drafted in the second. Jalen Johnson was drafted in the second round for Chicago off that Utah defense. You got the edge rusher that Dallas took in the 5th round. I think I might be forgetting one more guy off that Utah defense, but they were loaded. I mean, it was an NFL caliber defense, and he struggled. He threw 2 pick sixes to my count. I sat there, I watched this game. He should have thrown 4 interceptions. 2 of them were dropped. The 2 he did throw, both went to the house. Bring, house call. He was awful in that game. I think he completed it at less than 50%. He struggled. Now, that was 2019. I don't know if the 2020 version of Zach Wilson performs as poorly as he did. I just know that was an NFL caliber defense and he struggled. And I know that Coastal Carolina, in his biggest game of his career, he struggled, he was roughed up, and he didn't lead his team to a victory. So because of that, I can't elevate him over a guy that I know is capable in those situations. But I'd spend the number 1 pick on Zach Wilson in a heartbeat. He's a top 5 pick in my estimation. That's the way I project him. He's going to go number 2 to the Jets, I believe, if not 1 to the Jaguars. And my comp for him, and I didn't make a mistake here, he's Kyler Mahomes. He's Kyler Mahomes. That's my comp. I wanted to just go Deshaun Watson, but he's not Deshaun Watson. He's next level because he can make you miss in space, and he's more dynamic as a thrower of the football than Deshaun Watson. He's Kyler Mahomes. He's a mixture of both of those guys. Is he better than those guys? I don't know. We'll see. But I can tell you one thing. He's got those attributes in him. And that's why Jacksonville has a decision to make. And that's why you're hearing so many people talk about there's a decision to be made at 1. You know how I am. Don't believe the hype. You know what I like to say this time of the year? Believe half of what you hear, half of what you see, none of what you hear, even if it's spat by me, your man Louie T. But there's a little bit of credence to this when it applies to Zach Wilson. He's going to make things interesting, but ultimately, I think the number 1 quarterback is going to be the guy that's number 1 on my list. And of course, that's Trevor Lawrence. I do have a super chat that I want to get to. It's from John Livingston. And I really appreciate you, John Livingston, for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, who writes, "Hey, Lou, why you got to bring up my guy Allen into this old, he says, hey, Lou, why you got to bring my guy Allen into this? Bringing up old-ish." And laugh my ass off. Great job on the list. The Wilson hype train is really taking off. And rightfully so. I mean, when you watch him, he's undeniable. You get it. You understand why that is. But Trevor Lawrence is my number 1 quarterback. And to me, he's earned this over the life of his career. And what you'll see when we get to his card, let's flip this thing over, is that he just checks every box. And I'll tell you this right now. In evaluating quarterbacks, and I started doing this in 2012, was my first year evaluating draft choices, and really heavily doing it. I've followed the draft for many, many, many years. But to actually say I've watched film and I've really looked to see the little finer things and intricate details and taking notes and things of that nature, I started that in 2012. And it just so happened that the best quarterback for me was Andrew Luck, which was in that 2012 draft. The best quarterback to me I've ever evaluated was Joe Burrow. I thought Burrow just brought a different set of skills to the table that was unmatched even by Andrew Luck. And I think Lawrence is another one of those guys. I don't think he is better than either Joe Burrow or Andrew Luck, if you ask me. I wouldn't put him ahead of either one of those guys, personally myself. But he'd be the third guy. And I think nipping at his heels is Zach Wilson. I mean, he's a unique specimen too. But Trevor Lawrence, for me, he's seen it all. He's done it all. He's done it at a high level. He's got everything. He's got the size. I mean, even with some of these other guys, even Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow wasn't 6'6". You know what I mean? Joe Burrow wasn't, he didn't look like Trevor Lawrence. And it's not like Trevor Lawrence, 230 pounds, which you would prefer him to be at 6'6". But, man, I mean, he's got the amount of starts you're looking for, which means he's got the experience. He's a winner. 67% completion percentage for his career. I mean, he checks all the boxes, does Trevor Lawrence, man. His size is the first strength. And when you're talking 6'6", 220, I don't need to say much more. Arm talent. He doesn't have the strongest arm in the world. He doesn't. Again, you'll find stronger arms in this particular draft. I think there are several guys that can throw it a lot further, a lot harder. But Lawrence is the guy that I trust. He can get it wherever it needs to go, as I've mentioned, with several guys in this draft, including Justin Fields, among others. Athleticism, and this is something that you see with a lot of these quarterbacks, is that they're tough. They'll lower the shoulder. They'll get the extra yard or two. Again, that shit's got to come to a stop at the next level. It will cease to exist. This whole toughness. Yeah, I want you tough in the pocket. And if it's 3rd and 7 in the 4th quarter and we're down 6 and we need this first down, yeah, I want you to show your toughness. I want you to dive. I want you to lower the shoulder. I want you to do whatever you got to do to get the first down. Situational awareness. But in the first quarter, I don't need you running over a linebacker or safety. I'm good. I'd much rather you slide or run out of bounds. But he can run. We saw it in 2019 against Ohio State. We know he's capable. He can take off with the best of them. Accuracy in and out of the pocket. He can extend plays. He can make things happen inside the pocket with accuracy. Outside the pocket, you'll see that. I'm going to break his film down, and that'll be up at some point this weekend, either Friday or Saturday. And you'll see exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to Trevor Lawrence and his accuracy, him putting the football exactly where he wants to put it, where his guy can get it and the defender cannot. Pocket mobility and poise. To me, you will not find a quarterback, and this includes Joe Burrow and Andrew Luck, who I have evaluated, as I've already said, very highly. You will not find a quarterback in this year's draft or any other draft that I've seen that is able to negotiate a dirty pocket. Trevor Lawrence's ability to, within the confines of the pocket, move around, create more time, traffic all around him. You know, you've got trash at his feet. You've got a collapsing right guard that's giving up pressure. He stands tall and he delivers the football. And there's so much commotion around him and you wouldn't be able to tell it. You'd think he was in a Mac Jones, isolated, easy money pocket, clean as a whistle. And yet there is a lot going on around him. His left tackle's giving up pressure. His right guard's getting beat like a drum. And yet Trevor Lawrence is standing tall and delivering the football. His ability to quiet the noise around him in a dirty pocket with trash around him and deliver a strike is uncanny. Haven't seen anything like it. I will definitely show you clip after clip of him standing tall in a muddy pocket and delivering the football. I think that is uncanny and it's extraordinary. And that translates to the next level. Extends to throw. I talked about a couple of guys earlier, that they're not extending plays to throw. They're extending to run, and you want your quarterback to extend with his eyes up, looking to make a play down the field. Look, it's cool if you run for 8, and there are going to be times where I need you to run for 8. But I'd much rather you look for the 48-yard touchdown strike or the 33-yard gain down to the other team's, 18-yard line than you scramble and pick up 6 yards or even 10 or 12. If there's a bigger play to be had, I'd like you to explore that, and he does that. He's extending, looking to throw. Athletic arrogance. I talked about this with Zach Wilson. Only the elites have athletic arrogance. I mean, you can't have it. I mean, there were guys that thought they were good and they weren't. We all know the dude playing pickup basketball, probably was nice in high school, wasn't all that nice in college, or probably wasn't even nice in high school, thinks he's the shit, thinks he's got all kinds of handles, but I could go up there and I can pluck him. I can give me the cookies. But he thinks he's nice, and then when you reach in the cookie jar and you come out with the rock, he wants to call foul. We all know those dudes. That's not Trevor Lawrence. He's athletically arrogant because he's that damn good, and he can back it up. So he's the guy that you get off the bus and okay, he's the alpha. He's a guy that's, if we're going to lose today, it'll be because of him. And if you're on his team, if we're going to win today, it's going to be because of him. Process and progress. I talk about P&P all the time, being able to go through your progressions, see the football field, go through your reads, make the right decision, know what the defense is in, quickly identify, get it to the right guy. You see him do that. There are times where he gets stuck. We'll talk about that here in a second. But for the most part, you see him going through his progressions. He recognizes what the defense is doing, and he gets it where he needs to, gets the football where it needs to go. Playmaker. I've talked about this already. If you're going to be the number 1 overall pick in any given draft at the quarterback position, you damn well better be able to extend plays and be a playmaker. Not only with your legs, but with your arm as well. You better be able to, on 3rd and goal from the 7, roll out of the pocket, extend, and right as you're nearing the out-of-bounds sidelines, throw a strike to your receiver on the back end line. You better be able to do that. On 2nd and 10 from the 13-yard line, because we know shit gets tight in the red zone. You better be able to roll out to your left and extend, and see the tight end coming across late and throw across your body and zing it in there for the touchdown. You better be able to do that. You know, when shit breaks down and you're at your own, you know, deep in your own territory, you're at your own 6-yard line and you drop back and nobody's open, you better be able to run that arc, get outside the pocket, outrun that defensive end, and you better be able to throw it 23 yards on a frozen rope on the sidelines to a receiver who's standing right by out of bounds, but he's got both feet down, and you don't need him to stretch up. You don't need him to stretch back or down. You need to hit him right between the 1 and the 8, or the 8 and the 3. That's Trevor Lawrence. And he's a winner. He's a winner. 34-2, man. 3 seasons, only 2 losses. Both of those losses coming in the playoffs. One in the national championship game in 2019 and one in the semifinals in 2020. He won it all in 2018, leading the Clemson Tigers to a national championship in his first year as the starter after taking over for Kelly Bryant 2 games in. So this is a guy, or 3 or 4 games in, this is the guy that has seen it all, done it all. Hasn't lost a ton of games in his career, finds ways to win. He finds ways to get it done. It's not always pretty, but it's usually gritty. And most importantly, it's usually a dub. So you go from his strengths to his weaknesses. He will stare it down. You know, I'm watching him and he is just massaging it. I mean, there are throws where I'm like, bro, are you serious right now? And I'm going to show you this on the film. You're like, are you serious? Are you really going to just stare at him like that safety's not watching you? And you're not going to just, he might as well have taken the safety's hand and said, come on, man. And walked him over like he was a 4-year-old child trying to cross the street. Come on, man. I'm going to take you right where you need to go. He might as well have done that because he's staring it down. I can't tell you how many times watching him on film, too, where it's 1 hitch, it's 2 hitch, and he's throwing a comeback or he's throwing a hitch, and I'm like, dude, you can't still throw that. And he does. I'm thinking about the Virginia game in the ACC championship in 2019. I'm like, you can't still throw that. You know, you can't double stamp a triple stamp. You can't double stamp a triple stamp. You can't still throw that hitch. You just double hitched. You can't throw it. But he still did. How that wasn't a pick six? Don't ask me. But he'll get better at that. Deep ball accuracy. I talked about this same thing with Justin Fields. And there are times where guys are open deep and he's short on the deep ball. I need him to hit that. And there are times where he throws absolute dimes. But there are too many instances where these balls are short. And again, I'm going to show you this on the film. But I can tell you this. That's something he's got to get better at if he wants to be elite at the next level. And I think he will. Ball security. 10 fumbles in 3 years. That's not egregious. It's not great either. And he lost 7 of those fumbles. And that's the part that really gets you. If you fumble it 10 times and you only lose 2, okay, shit happens. You lose 7 of them, and you know, a lot of times with fumbles, it's the luck of the draw. At the end of the day, I need him to have better ball security. I'm watching that Ohio State game, his last collegiate game. He fumbled like 3 or 4 times in that game. That can't happen. He's got to be better with the football. Better security with the football in hand. But at the end of the day, he's a top 5 pick. That's where I project him. Honestly speaking, he's a top 3. Same with Zach Wilson, but he's a top 5 pick. He'll go 1, no worse than 2. Same thing with Zach Wilson. He'll go 1, no worse than 2. And my comp for him is Justin Herbert. Now, here's the thing. I wasn't a massive Justin Herbert fan coming out of Oregon. You guys know that. If you watched my show last year, I told you that a million times. Thought that Justin Herbert was toolsy, was the phrase I used with Justin Herbert. He's toolsy. He's big. He's got a cannon. The biggest difference I see on the positive for Justin Herbert is his arm's way stronger than that of Trevor Lawrence. Not even close. On the Trevor Lawrence side of things, when you talk about positives, where he's better than Justin Herbert coming into the league, he's more decisive. He's more willing to run and make you pay with his legs. I think he's a better athlete than Justin Herbert in terms of his ability to run when he gets it revved up. And he's a better winner than Justin Herbert ever was at Oregon. So I just look at the stature, the size, the ability. We saw Herbert and what he did last year when he came into the league and how he was able to extend plays and how he was able to use his athleticism to hurt teams on 3rd and 7 when he needed to run. When he needed to extend a play to gun it in the back of the end zone, he could do that. When he needed to chuck it deep, when he went toe-to-toe with Tom Brady, he could and he did. When he went toe-to-toe on a Monday night with Drew Brees and should have won the game, I see a lot of those same attributes in Trevor Lawrence. And I think when it's all said and done, he'll be too hard. He'll be too hard to pass up at 1. And I think Urban Meyer will think long and hard because Zach Wilson is a different specimen, as I've already mentioned. But I just think he's going to ultimately be the first pick in the 2021 NFL draft. So that's my quarterback ranking. I just want to quickly go through it once again, so we are clear on where I stand with my quarterback ranking for the 2021 draft. That said, I have a couple of super chats. I want to get to those really quickly. John Livingston, my man JL Smooth. Double up. Greatly appreciate you as always. Writes, Lou, can we get a I've got sunshine on a cloudy day? Yeah, you can get a sunshine. Sunshine. You can get a sunshine. You can get a couple sunshines. Best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck, in my opinion. Jacksonville will be interesting. Again, I had Joe Burrow as the best I saw coming out. What he did was ridiculous, and I knew it translated to the next level. But again, Luck and Lawrence aren't too far behind. I don't think he's better than Andrew Luck coming out of Stanford either. But again, damn close. Got another super chat. This is also from my man JL Smooth, John Livingston. Thank you for tripling up. Greatly appreciate you. My man John writes, how did you feel about Devontae Smith's interview that he said he preferred Mac Jones over Tua? Bush League for them to leak that, in my opinion. I was going to talk about that tonight anyway. I don't have a problem with him saying it. I don't have a problem with it being leaked. That's the media age that we live in. You know, anytime you can get that kind of information out, it's going to come out. And it's draft season. So you don't know who leaked that information. that could have been Mac Jones's people leaking that information, for all you know. Like, the bottom line is that only helps Mac Jones. Tua's already in the league, so it doesn't hurt Tua Tagovailoa at all. That helps Mac Jones. So he could have easily have said that because of what I just said. Tua's already in the league. Mac Jones isn't. He's trying to help his boy get in the league and get as high a draft pick as possible. Or he could actually mean that, and I think he does. And I think it's because he had his best season of his career. Devontae Smith could have come out last year. And a lot of people like myself were like, why is this guy going back to school? For what? He didn't need to go back to school. Go and pursue your NFL dreams now. Go get paid. And he went back to school and he elevated his draft stock. And I didn't think that was possible because if he would have come out last year, he would have been a first round pick. But he's now going to be one of the first 3 receivers taken. I don't know if I could have said that last year. I don't know if he goes ahead of Jerry Jeudy, his teammate, or Henry Ruggs, his other teammate, or CD Lamb. I don't know if he goes ahead of those guys. He would have been in that Justin Jefferson range, right in that 22, somewhere in there where he would have come off the board. He would have been a first round pick though, for sure. Now, he's a top 10 pick, no worse than top 15, more likely than not. And Mac Jones is very responsible for that. I talked about Mac Jones's uncanny ability to be accurate, pinpoint accurate, where you can catch and run after the pass is completed. And so he owes a lot of the money he's going to make to Mac Jones. So I don't have a problem with him saying that. That speaks volumes for Mac Jones. And it might not just be from a quarterback play standpoint. It could also be from a leadership standpoint. Mac Jones could be a better leader than Tua Tagovailoa in Devontae Smith's eyes. And so there's a lot of layers to that comment that was made, but all of it benefits Mac Jones. So I didn't have a problem with them leaking it. Again, it's probably done. Again, it's draft season. Believe half of what you see, none of what you hear, even if it's spat by me, your man Louie T. It's draft season. Everybody's lying because everybody's got an agenda. Everybody's trying to get something. And so that was put out there for the masses and mass consumption because Mac Jones is looking to make sure he's a first-round pick. And his handlers and his people, his agency, they probably were responsible for that. And that's cool. I have no problems with it. None whatsoever. It's not going to hurt Tua. He's already in the league. All right. Don't think I have any more super chats. I don't see any comments. So what I want to do is I want to get to my next segment, and it's called Sound the Alarm. And so this is where I like to bring up a prospect at the particular position that we're talking about on that evening, which we're talking about the quarterbacks tonight. And I like to talk about a guy that's a sleeper that maybe I wasn't as privy to going into the process. Maybe I was sleeping on him. Maybe everybody's sleeping on him. Maybe we haven't heard his name a ton. And maybe it's for good reason. But I've discovered him now. I watch film. I'm impressed. And I think that this guy is going to come off the board a little bit sooner. We're going to get to that in a second. But I got another super chat. This one is from Santiago Tradell. Thank you for the super chat. Santiago Tradell, who writes, "What up, Lou? Everybody has different orders at the end of the day. Every team hopes they bring in the QB that makes their team champs. Love you, Lou. Same could be said for you, Santiago Tradell. Likewise, brother. Really appreciate you. Everybody's looking for that guy. That's what the NFL draft is all about. It's a crapshoot. If this were an exact science, then every year 7 more teams wouldn't be looking for their franchise signal caller. But because it's an inexact science, a team that failed at it 4 years ago is back at it again. The team that failed 3 years ago is back at it again. Or in the case of a Washington team that just failed 2 years ago in the draft is back at it again. So everybody's looking for their guy. And it's not easy to find. But if you're lucky enough to get that guy, you got a chance to win a Super Bowl for the next 15 years. The Buffalo Bills are set up with a chance to win the Super Bowl for the next 15 years. Now, they may only go to 1 or 2. They may only win 1. They may win none. But they've got a quarterback in Josh Allen that puts them in a position to win a Super Bowl for the next 15 years. If Justin Herbert is what we think he is in Los Angeles for the Chargers, they're set up to where they could win a Super Bowl, and it's early. I'm not willing to crown his ass quite yet. If you want to crown his ass, then crown his ass. I'm not going to do it yet. But, man, he was impressive last year. I got to give him credit. If he is what we think he is, and he follows up his rookie campaign with an even stronger sophomore campaign, then they're set up for the next 15 years to win a Super Bowl or multiple Super Bowls. That's what finding a franchise guy can do for your organization. And if you swing and miss, it sets you back 5 years. Or in the case of Washington, it only set them back 2. But a lot of teams aren't willing to admit after just 2 years. If Dwayne Haskins wasn't such a distraction off the field, even with his poorest play, if he was a hell of a teammate and everybody in the locker room loved him and everybody in the building said this kid works hard and he wants to be great, he'd still be on Washington's roster right now, and they wouldn't be looking for a quarterback yet. We would have chalked it up to inexperience and he just needs more time. But that wasn't the case. And that's also another part of this that you got to get right, is you got to get a guy that loves the game, that's willing to put in the work. So that's something else that you also got to be sure of when you're assessing these quarterbacks. I got another super chat. This one is from Joe C. Thank you for the super chat, Joe C. Greatly appreciate you. Joe C writes, love the show. Sound review as usual. What about Peyton Ramsey? Very good, intangible, and smart guy. So you ask about Peyton Ramsey. He was one of the last quarterbacks I evaluated. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't have a very glowing review of Peyton Ramsey. Here's my analysis of Peyton Ramsey in a nutshell. A quarterback that led Northwestern to one of their best seasons in recent memory. He was a graduate transfer from Indiana who is a game manager at best with a pop gun arm reminiscent of Chad Pennington. His attributes, his best attribute may be his legs, even though those are only slightly above average. I can tell you this, the guy's a winner, Peyton Ramsey is. But winning isn't good enough to get you in the league and onto an NFL roster. I think Peyton Ramsey will get an opportunity as an undrafted. He will not be drafted. But he will get an opportunity to come to somebody's camp, and if he impresses them with his work ethic, his smarts, and shows them that he's a guy that is willing to put in the work to hang around this league for a little while, he may be on somebody's practice squad with a chance to be a backup down the road. But I can tell you right now, he's just the physical gifts, he just doesn't possess them. His arm is way below average. His athleticism is slightly above average. It's not great, but it's good enough to impact the game. He knows where to go with the football. You know, I'm watching him at Indiana back in 2019, and he was the MVP of the bowl game versus Tennessee, even though he didn't throw a touchdown pass in the game and did throw an interception. But you could tell this is a guy that knows where to go with the ball. He's got a ton of starts under his belt. He transferred over to Northwestern, takes them to one of their most successful seasons. So again, wherever this guy goes, winning follows. Okay, I'm watching him against Michigan State, and I just don't see a guy that had in Michigan State at the time of the game they're playing them. They're 1-3, and you know Northwestern is undefeated, and they're in the midst of one of their best seasons in school history, and they go to East Lansing and they lose to Michigan State because Peyton Ramsey just wasn't good enough. He just simply wasn't good enough in that ball game. And there are a lot of things that he just can't do. Like there was one play where he rolls to his right and then there's a throwback opportunity for him across the field to the tight end. And if he just looks in front of him, there's a wide open receiver for the touchdown. But it's a throwback play, and he's supposed to throw it to the tight end. So he rolls out to his right and throws it all the way back to his left. He doesn't have the arm for that. And that ball took forever. Or as a wise woman once told me, forever. To get there, the defender, who was like 5 yards away from the tight end, runs feverishly all the way to the tight end, gets there at the last second and breaks it up. Like, I said all of that to say this. He doesn't have enough to be drafted, number one, and number two, to, I think, have a sustainable career in this league. But stranger things have happened. We'll see. I just don't see it with him. Thank you for the super chat, Joe C. Got another super chat. This one is from my man, John Livingston. Thank you for your fourth super chat of the night, JL Smooth. Greatly appreciate you, as always. Who writes, you see the Cam interview on I Am Athlete? Great interview. He's making a strong comeback this season. I kept the receipts on what you said about him, laughing my ass off. But if I'm wrong, I'll eat that crow. You don't have to keep the receipts, because I'm going to keep repeating myself about Cam Newton. I loved the interview. I talked about it on the Washington show that I posted yesterday. I'm going to talk about it probably again on my next podcast. But he's got a chip on his shoulder, man. I did say that on the Washington show yesterday, and I'm interested to see if someone is willing to take a chance on him in the 2021 offseason and give him an opportunity to come in early, learn the offense. He talked numerous times on the show about not having an offseason, not being able to get acclimated in New England. We'll see if he gets that opportunity this offseason or not. Let's see. Got my sound the alarm. So this is the guy that I feel like I was sleeping on, and maybe some of you were sleeping on in this draft. And he is my 8th ranked quarterback in the 2021 NFL draft. And you may not have heard of him. His name is Davis Mills of Stanford. And this guy is really intriguing. If you haven't heard of him, I get it, and I understand why. But I'm here to sound the alarm. Wake the hell up if you're sleeping on Davis Mills. Because not only is he going to be drafted in the 2021 NFL draft, he's going to come off the board a lot sooner than many of you think. This is a guy 6'4", 222, and not a lot of starts. But just to give you a little bit of background information on Davis Mills, this was a guy that was highly sought after coming out of high school. This was a guy that was the #1 rated pocket passer coming out of high school. This was a guy that was in the Elite 11 competition with the likes of Tua Tagovailoa, Jake Fromm, Sam Ehlinger, just to name a few. It was a loaded Elite 11, and he was voted the most likely to succeed in the NFL. So that just kind of gives you a sense of what kind of talent Davis Mills has. So this is a guy that you should not overlook, despite the lack of starts and the lack of production over the life of his career. But let's take a look at Davis Mills and his QB card. So let's flip this thing over and take a look at him. And for me, you're talking about a guy here in Davis Mills that's 6'4", 222. So I see a guy with just the perfect type of size you're looking for at the quarterback position. Adequate arm. His arm is, again, like a lot of the guys in this draft, I'm not overly impressed with his arm. He's got plenty of arm strength to get the football wherever it needs to go. His accuracy, short to intermediate, is awesome, and he gets it there in a heartbeat. He understands where the ball is supposed to go. He gets it there, and it's accurate. Gives his guy a chance. I don't know if I saw a better 50-50 ball thrower in this draft than Davis Mills. He's got a receiver, Kyoko, that's going to be drafted this year. That's a big kid that can go up and make plays that he just time and time again found and gave him opportunities on the 50-50 ball, and he went up and got it. And Kyle Trask also throws a lovely 50-50 ball, but Davis Mills was exceptional at that. Extremely catchable ball touch. I just kind of alluded to that. His 50-50 balls are awesome. You know, I love it when quarterbacks give their guy, and they know they got a 6'3", 6'4", 6'5" target. I really like when guys give their receivers opportunities to go up and make a play, and Davis Mills does that. Above average athleticism. So the first thing that stuck out to me when I watched him, and I went back and watched him in 2019 and then watched some 2020 film, is he's got a big bulky knee brace on. And I'm like, ugh. Normally that's a sign that you've probably had some type of knee injury in the past. So you're trying to protect your knee, which is fine. But it also usually tells me you're probably not that great of an athlete. Like, dudes aren't running around with multiple knee braces on or a knee brace on if they're a tremendous athlete a lot of times. If you're an athlete, you don't want that thing weighing you down. You know, you don't want, if you don't have to wear it, you don't wear it. And Davis Mills wearing it was a red flag. Oh, okay, he's not an athlete. But I'm watching this guy on tape, and I'm like, huh, that's interesting. He's getting out of danger in the pocket. There's some elusiveness here too. I mean, he's stepping up, he's stepping back, he's moving sideways, he's jumping laterally, and then he's escaping, and then he's showing off some wheels. And I'm like, okay, Davis, I see you. So, you know, I'm watching this kid and I'm saying, okay, there's something here from an athletic standpoint. He's not a slouch back there. He doesn't have, you know, concrete in his shoes. He can actually move. He's got some pocket toughness. And what I mean by that is he will stand in the pocket and take one to deliver one. If he sees a middle linebacker on a green dog coming free and he knows, man, I'm about to get crushed. But I got one-on-one on the outside and I trust my guy. I'm going to stand in here. I'm going to deliver this rock and I'm going to take this shot. And he'll do that. So he's got that pocket toughness that you like from a guy that's going to stand in there and deliver it down the field. Pro-style quarterback at Stanford, we all know they're going to run the damn football at Stanford, okay? You know what was actually refreshing was seeing them actually spread it out a couple of times and let Davis Mills throw it. But we all know at Stanford, David Shaw is one of the most conservative coaches, not just in college football, but in coaching, period. Okay? So, needless to say, you're going to get a boatload of, 13 personnel. We're putting 3 tight ends on the field, and we're going to come out and we're going to tell them, we're running it. Stop us. And off of that, you better be able to fake it and get outside on the boot and find a target. And Davis Mills is able to do that. He can fake it. He can give you a little bit of that action. His fakes are outstanding, sells the fakes well, and it opens up things for him to get the football to his targets. And then process and progress. I talk about this P&P all the time, going through your reads, knowing where to go with the football. He definitely knows where he needs to go, where the ball has to go. Again, I would like to see him get more starts under his belt. He can get even better at that. But for a guy with only 11 career starts, 13 games appeared in over a 4-year career, for him to do some of the things I watched him do on tape, it says to me he's beyond his years in terms of him starting. So that's a good thing. Weakness. He's got quite a few, but a lot of them can be attached to just lack of playing time. Limited starting experience. I mean, only 11 games as a starter, man. That's not even a full college football season for most teams. You play at a Power 5 conference, that's more, they're playing in at least 13 games if you stay healthy. So to only have 11, the man started 5 games in 2020 in an abbreviated season for Stanford and only 8 games the year prior in 2019. He's got a history of knee injuries. Remember, I talked about the knee brace. The reason I talked about the knee brace is because he's had a history of knee injuries. It started in high school. Part of the reason he didn't come in right away in 2017 and compete for the starting job is because he was coming off of knee surgery. And so he was out. He didn't get a chance to compete. Paul Chryst ended up winning the job, and so he had to sit. And then he had to wait again for his turn. He ultimately got his turn after an injury to the starter in 2019 and took advantage, and he didn't look back. So he's had some knee injuries throughout his career. He will lock on to targets and predetermine where the football is going to go. Again, I think with more experience playing, some of those things will decrease. You won't see him predetermining, or you won't see him locking on to targets as much. If he plays more and has a better feel for what's going on, I think you'll see that kind of subside. But right now, with only 11 starts under his belt, those are the kind of mistakes guys make in their freshman year or in their sophomore year when you're only 11 starts in. We're talking about a senior quarterback making his 11th start. So you're going to have some of those mistakes. Not as accurate on the move. That's something I would like to see him improve upon, is when he's on the move outside the pocket. I'd like to see him be a little bit more accurate. I think he can improve upon that. For a guy that's as athletic as he can be at times and extend plays, I'm going to need him to be a little bit more accurate than what I saw from him. And again, maybe that comes with more time playing, more experience. But I don't think he's as accurate on the move as you would like him to be outside of the pocket. And finally, inconsistent deep ball accuracy. You'll see a dime here and there, and I'm going to upload a clip at some point, one of my favorite Davis Mills plays, where he does a tremendous job of looking off the safety and delivering a dime over the top, stands in, takes a shot in the pocket. I mean, absolutely gets crushed and delivers a dime for the touchdown. And you're like, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about, Davis. And then times you'll see guys open, got a step, and he just overshoots him. Or it's underthrown. And you're like, come on, man. I need that. Got to have it. But all in all, this is a guy you probably haven't heard of. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. I project him as a mid-round selection. I could see him coming off the board before Jamie Newman. I could see him coming off the board before Kellen Mond. I could see that happening. He's a mid-round quarterback. I wouldn't spend a day 1 or day 2 pick on him, but I would spend a 4th or a 5th round pick on Davis Mills. He's probably going to get selected in the 5th round, more likely than not. But if you spent a 4th round pick on him, I wouldn't have any issues with that whatsoever. I think there's starters upside here with Davis Mills. He ultimately may only be an NFL backup, but I think there's some starter capabilities here. My comp for him is Sam Darnold. I see a lot of those same qualities. I didn't know Sam could run the way that he could run when he was in college at USC because he didn't really run. I can see Davis Mills running like Sam Darnold did on that 46-yard touchdown versus the Denver Broncos on Thursday Night Football this past year. I could see that in Davis Mills. I could see some interceptions, from Davis Mills like I do with Sam Darnold. But I can also see some dimes from Davis Mills like I do Sam Darnold. Similar size, similar attributes, similar arm talent, similar athleticism. I see a lot of Sam Darnold in Davis Mills. So I like this kid, and I think he could be a guy that you take a mid-round pick on, you develop him, and we could see him down the road. So he's my sleeper this week on the show at the quarterback position. I also have another segment that I call Shakers and Movers. I'll just tell you who my shaker and movers are for this week. My shaker going up, I have two actually. Davis Mills and Sam Ehlinger. I was a lot more impressed with those two guys than I went into the process thinking I was going to be. When I first started this process out, I thought Kellen Mond, I thought that Jamie Newman would be ahead of those guys. I was wrong. Those guys, Mond wasn't as bad as I thought. Right now, I've got Ehlinger 8th or 7th. I've got Mills 8th. I've got Mond 9. And then I've got Jamie Newman 10. The guy that's moving down the list for me is Jamie Newman. I was not impressed at all with Jamie Newman. We'll talk about him at a later date and time, but really disappointed in what I saw from him. And some of that is a byproduct of the offense that he played in at Wake Forest. It wasn't worth a damn. And I would have loved, I think, and I said this on a podcast once upon a time, I don't think there was a quarterback hurt by not playing in 2020 more than Jamie Newman. Nobody needed 2020 more. I felt like, Justin Fields could have used 2020, and he did. And that game against Clemson was a defining moment for him. It, to me, solidified him as a top 10 pick. If you were on the fence about Justin Fields, that 6 touchdown, 1 interception performance with the injury that he sustained earlier in the game and some of the throws he made in that game, it solidified that if you were on the fence about Justin Fields, he can get it done. Jamie Newman was a guy that he wasn't going to be a first-round pick without a strong 2020. But this was a guy that was, kind of on the fence. Could he be a day 2 pick? Could he be a second or a third round pick? With a solid, not a strong, just a solid campaign at Georgia in 2020. He was probably looking at a day 2 selection, more likely than not. He shows well in the SEC, 21 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions, and, completes it at a 64.8% clip. And he throws for, 2,963 yards. Yeah, he's a third round pick or so. And you can feel good about that if you're Jamie Newman. Had he went to Georgia and shredded it, tore it up, and come out of there 34 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 3,718 yards, 67% completion percentage. They go 11-2. And they lose in the SEC championship to Alabama. It's a whole different narrative. Totally different narrative. He might be a first round pick. But now I'm looking at Jamie Newman and I'm like, bro, you a 5th round pick. Anything earlier than that is uncivilized. It's uncivilized for me. Can't see any way possible somebody looks at Jamie Newman off the tape that he's put forth and says he's better than a day 3 5th round selection. Now, if he gets taken in the 6th, I wouldn't bat an eye, or in the 7th. But if he comes off the board in the 4th round, I'm surprised. If he comes off the board before day 3, I'm shocked. Shocked. So, we'll see what happens. We got some more quarterbacks that we can get into, and I may do that at a later date and time. Newman and Kellen Mond, Shane Buechele. There's some other guys that I think are worthy of discussion. Felipe Franks, I'm not a big fan of his, but, you can't teach what he's got. He's a height, weight, speed specimen. So somebody may fall in love with him and take him in the 7th round as a developmental quarterback. So we'll see. But in any event, I don't see any more comments. I do see a couple of comments here. I want to read a few of them. Let's see. That one doesn't make any sense. That one doesn't have anything to do. Neither does that one. JP says, I can't wait to hear your Kellen Mond breakdown. Kellen Mond is a bona fide scrub in his Stephen A. Smith voice. I'll tell you, he's not as bad as I thought. He's not my guy, though. He's not my cup of tea. But he's not as bad as I thought. There has been development. And I like to see that. I saw it with Sam Ehlinger. I saw the same thing with Kellen Mond to a lesser degree. There has been development over the years. So that's a good thing. Let's see. Have another super chat. This one is from my man, John Livingston. Again, JL Smooth, greatly appreciate you. 5th super chat of the night, who writes, have you watched the FCF? Manziel was the only reason I checked it out, the Zappers. He said, TFS, I don't know what it is either. A Zapper, by the way, LOL. I'm not a fan of Bob Menery. He seems to enable Johnny's behavior that got him into trouble. I haven't watched it, nor do I have any interest in watching it. It seems like Arena League football to me, pretty much, with a little bit more fan control. Obviously, that's the name of the league, fan-controlled football. But I'm not a massive fan of it. So, no, I haven't checked it out, and I don't think I will check it out either, to be honest with you. But we'll see. I could say that, and there could be nothing on, and who knows? It may end up on the television screen one day. But right now, doesn't feel that way. So, in any event, that's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. I don't see any more comments. I really appreciate you guys chopping it up with me. We'll be doing this every single week from here until the draft, each Wednesday. I really appreciate you guys chopping it up with me. Bring your questions if you've got any. Again, we're going to be talking about each specific position. So that's what I'm going to be talking about on any given night. Next week, we will turn our attention to the running back position. And I think this is a really deep running back draft class. I don't necessarily think it's very top heavy, but I think it is a draft in which you can get some really talented rushers in this draft. And you can get some in the second and in the third round and beyond potentially. Hell, we had an undrafted guy in James Robinson be one of the more prolific rookie rushers last season. So I think there's going to be some depth in this draft at the running back position. We will talk about that next week. If you haven't already done so, once more, I'm going to hit this button and let you know to subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content. Turn on the notification bell. If you haven't already done so, make sure that you subscribe to the Louie T Network and hit that like button. There are over 200 of you out there, 225 of you to be exact, only 102 likes. I appreciate you guys getting it up over 100. Let's get it to 120 if we can. Really do appreciate you guys and all your support. And I look forward to chopping it up with you guys again in the near future. We should have a podcast tomorrow, a brand new episode. Washington Football live, Washington Football Report live tomorrow night at 8:30 p. as well. So I look forward to joining you guys. And we'll be putting out a lot of content over the next few days on the Louie T Network. And again, it's going to be a whirlwind here as we prepare for the draft. There's no combine to kind of get us aligned, just a bunch of little small pro days. So we're going to hit the ground running and try to tackle this thing with aggressiveness moving forward. So I look forward to chopping it up with you guys. I got one here, a comment on the way out from KWS that says, love the show. Thanks for doing it. But what's up with the one hair string hanging? LOL. Love the swag. Oh, you ain't met him? That's Ramon. So obviously you haven't been watching the podcast, but that's my sidekick, Ramon. And he's going to be accompanying me when I see fit. And when we talk in draft on the podcast, usually Ramon likes to come out and play. So there he is. Get used to seeing him because that's my guy. So with that said, I'm out of here. You guys enjoy the rest of your night. Take care. And I look forward to chopping it up with you guys tomorrow on the Louie T Network podcast. Guys, have a great night. Take care.
Louie T Network.